Welcome to episode 12 of Building Blocks with Brendan. Today we get to speak about something everyone loves, and that is chocolate. We're speaking with Jake over on MidDay Squares to learn how he turned this tasty little square into a fully run family business. What's really interesting about our conversation is not only how he got into entrepreneurship, really his whole journey from being a student all the way to running a family business that is selling thousands of chocolate bars or chocolate all across North America. But most importantly, how difficult it can be to control a brand from end to end. When it comes to consumer packaged goods, one of the challenges is they have to sometimes give up full control due to the fact you work with distributors and other intermediaries to get your product from your warehouses or your factories into the consumer's hands. We speak about some of those challenges today, as well as how difficult it can be to really have a brand and how important it is to have a brand when it comes to any product. One of the unique things about MidDay Squares is whether you look on their website, you look at Jake's personal Instagram, you look at the MidDay Squares Instagram or LinkedIn, one thing is consistent, and that is the energy they bring. In their ads, in their videos, in their personal lives, you can tell that this business embodies the same attitude they have when it comes to running a business. One of the interesting things about their company as well is how important the brand is. They have in-house designers and people who just work on ensuring that the same energy they have for their product is apparent to the whole world. This is a highly energetic episode, and hopefully you guys enjoy to see how these squares are going to be growing exponentially. Get it? That's a math joke. Thank you so much for connecting. Came across your profile because you had very entertaining videos on LinkedIn and a lot of energy in it, and especially when checking out your website, MidDay Squares, a lot of entertaining content. Your face can be found there. So I guess to start off, what is MidDay Squares? Kind of what's the elevator pitch for it, and how did it all get started?
Yeah, dude, basically we're a functional chocolate company. So basically what we wanted to do was tackle the chocolate snacking industry, but
Mhm.
create better for you products in it and also have some sort of added value to the product. So, our first line is a functional chocolate bar. So imagine you take a chocolate bar, you take a protein bar, you make love with the two, you have a baby, but you get rid of all the junk that's in protein bars, like the artificial flavors, the preservatives, the additives, the chalky chemical taste, and you make it a chocolate bar that had those functions. So it has the high protein, high fiber, good fat ratio that could keep you full for 3 to 4 hours. So people are getting both, they're satisfying their chocolate cravings, but they're also getting a little more than that. So that's what we created in terms of product.
Mhm.
We started in 2018. My sister, my brother-in-law, and I. So it's a family business, family-run business.
That's nice.
And what's cool is we are the manufacturer. A lot of food
Ooh.
companies outsource their manufacturing. So they do it as a third party. They use a co-manufacturer. For us, our product was actually very innovative. So the co-manufacturers were unable to make the product. So what they wanted to do was actually have us buy machinery for them. Instead of that, we ended up building our own factory out here in Montreal, kind of like the modern day Willy Wonka. And yeah, now
Mhm.
we're 2.5 years in and multinational, super pumped about the future of this because the chocolate snacking space is absolutely massive. It's, I think, as big as the dairy space. So you could just imagine. And our goal is just to make
Oh,
better for
wow.
you snacks and build a brand.
So that's kind of interesting. I touched on like compared to protein powders and stuff. I know back in the day, back in undergrad, I guess when everyone's really into fitness, you always used to buy those protein bars, and then you'd Google it, and people would be like, "Just eat a Snickers." If you're trying to be healthy, they're literally just sugar. It's not any healthier just because they throw protein on it. People would assume it was better for you, and then a lot of times, like you were saying, it's like, "Oh, this is just as processed." Just having something that's more natural and not satiating, but also tastes good. I started making my own bars with like peanut butter, nuts, the same thing, and it's kind of interesting how you touched on it as well, where you want something that tastes good, and most of those other bars really are nothing more than a glorified chalky chocolate bar, which is always upsetting when you think you're trying to be healthy. So chocolate, very exciting. Were you like in food? How'd you get into the chocolate space? Were you in food sciences? Were you a avid chocolate eater? Did you watch too much Willy Wonka and get scared by the tunnel scene as a kid? Like, how did it all happen?
Dude, it's actually so funny. I'm a candy guy. I'm not a chocolate guy. So for me, I have an addiction to candy, like
Mhm,
actual candy, like not healthy candy, like real,
mhm,
like Maynards, like Cherry Blast
mhm,
or Sour Patch Kids. Like I have an obsession. So I will eventually own a candy factory one day,
mhm.
just for family and friends. That's not
Yeah.
not to create a business, But my sister is a foodie. None of us came from food science. I studied to be an actuary, failed actuarial science, went into financial economics. Ended up I was good with math, but then didn't do anything in that field, and then chose to start a chocolate company. My sister loved looking up like better for you ingredients from around the world.
Mhm.
She's always been passionate about that. And then my brother-in-law, her husband, is addicted to chocolate. Actually
Mhm.
addicted. So what he did was my sister was making him a snack previous to Midday Squares
Mhm.
to satisfy his chocolate cravings and not having to have him have O. Henry's every day or Lindt
Mhm.
chocolate bars that were full of sugar. And so what she did was she made him this chocolate snack at the time. This is in 2016, I think, where it was basically a chocolate bar that was just better for you. So it was made with better products,
Mhm.
not as processed ingredients. And he
Mhm.
loved it. He fell in love with it. The taste was delicious. It had some sort of functionality. He brought it to he had a software company at the time. He brought it to his crew there, and they all fell in love with it. And fast forward 2 years, when he sold out of his business, he had a 2 year non compete in 2018. He decided, he's like to my sister, he's like, "Yo, let's just start that chocolate thing you were making, commercialize it, and make it our
Mhm.
business together." And my sister's like, "Are you crazy? That's the most saturated space in the entire world. The
Mhm.
protein bar space and the chocolate bar space, two most saturated things." So what he
Mhm.
did is he said he got a report from a very well-known company here in Canada
Mhm.
that basically gave him a food M&A report that showed that
Mhm.
real chocolate, so anything above 55% cocoa mass and not
Mhm.
using palm kernel oil,
Mhm.
basically making real chocolate, not artificial chocolate, was growing at
Mhm.
44% year over year. And that vegan protein, so anything plant based, was on a tear at
Mhm.
36% year over year. This is in 2018, right? Or end of
Mhm.
2017. And he was like, "Holy shit, Leslie, you're making a baby of these two things. It's going to be a white
Mhm.
space. It's going to be an open market. There's going to be a product market fit." And that's
Mhm.
when they decided to commercialize it. They reached out to McGill Food Science team to help them just do
Mhm.
the lab testing and the shelf life testing and all that stuff. Then they came to me July 2018 and said, "Do you want to join and be the third partner?" And I said, "Hell no." Because I was like, who the hell wants to go into the protein bar, chocolate bar market? If you go to the
Mhm.
grocery store, there's aisles full of it, aisles.
Mhm.
And they said, "Trust us, trust us, trust us." Long story short, I committed in on August 15th, 2018. We launched Midday Squares.
Wow, it's such a story. I like about that story was one of those things where, and always those good stories where it didn't start off as a business. It was like, hey, I'm going to learn to make chocolate to make money. Was I'm doing this for myself. I want to be a little bit healthier. I want something that's enjoyable. And then eventually it transformed really into a business. Do you have a history of entrepreneurship? Like, were you used to working for small companies, kind of selling candy in your locker? Like, did this come naturally to you, or was it like a big leap where you're like, hey, might as well take a risk?
No, dude. So I've always been an entrepreneur. I failed at a lot of things.
Mhm.
My first entrepreneurship journey was making, I don't know if you remember those T-shirts in sports that had like a logo in the front and the player on the back.
Mhm.
Remember those? I used to do printed handmade at my house and sell them at high school to all my friends. But everyone loved sports then, or they still love sports, but they loved it so
Yeah.
much that they would take their parents' money and spend $12 on these T-shirts, and I was
Mhm.
making like $1 or something. But that
Yeah.
was my first journey. Then my second one was I ran a fitness boot camp outdoors in Montreal for every
Mhm.
summer after university because I didn't want to, go to a real job. And that was really good. I actually made a lot of dollars. I was making like 20 to 30,000 cash every summer on it, which was a great
Oh
thing.
wow.
Put it all away into savings, which is now in Midday Squares. But then the third one was I had this company called Chase and Hunter. Right after I graduated
Mhm.
college, I basically started a clothing brand that was all about
Mhm.
college experience. Ended up failing, lost about $60,000, and I thought that was my last hurrah because I was like, you know what, I'm
Mhm.
tired. I want to just go work for someone and go live it. And then my
Mhm.
partners, my brother-in-law, and my sister approached me. And they're like, "Give this one last ride." And that was it. And this one's working. So, entrepreneurship has been in my blood since day one, I would
Mhm.
say, and I hope it continues.
Mhm. I'll know for sure. And one thing being Canadian business, I tend to find this a lot is what did you find it difficult trying to be a Canadian business launching in Canada? I know a lot of people, it always seems like, hey, once you have some success, it's like, hey, United States, bigger market, California, always your California's the same size as Canada. Did you find it hard, especially launching a product, launching in Canada because the market could be seen as so much smaller? Or was it a good way of testing it and kind of growing with scale?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, the Canadian market is way smaller. So you've got like you said, California is practically bigger than Canada in terms of
Mhm,
population, and they consume actually a lot more. And I think Texas's GDP alone is bigger than Canada's GDP. So if you think about that, the U.S. is a massive entity, but they're very different
mhm,
state by state. They're very different cultures and different
mhm,
purchasing habits. There's a lot of research that has to go into your stuff there. In Canada, you've got a couple main metropolitan cities like Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto,
mhm,
Calgary, and Vancouver, let's say, and maybe Edmonton and stuff like that, and Winnipeg
mhm,
potentially. But there's not that many markets. So you could prove it out pretty quickly. And in the food space, you've got a monopoly on groceries. You've got three big grocery stores. You've got Metro, you've got
mhm,
Loblaws, and you got Sobeys. So if you could do well in those, you practically cover the entire Canada in terms of physical distribution. For us, when we started in Montreal, we actually got the city behind us, which is really cool. So the
Ooh,
community here helped us really get that domino effect to hit, and we're grateful for that. And again, we have actually an investment from the government, the Quebec government, so because of manufacturing. So
mhm,
we're grateful for that. But now that we're entering into the U.S., we're seeing a lot more opportunities, a lot more stuff that is not available in Canada, like services, for example, to help you
mhm.
push product. Talent,
Oh,
for
mhm,
example, there's more talent available. And I think that's a big thing. And then also the consumer habits are different. So, they purchase a lot more than Canadians do. So I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think you got to learn in the country that you're in. I think that's your
mhm,
hometown where you'll get a lot of community push at the beginning,
mhm,
which is basically where you're from. So you build your friends, your networks, your family. That helps. That gets you going right off the bat. That gets the initial
mhm.
rocket. Then you got to build the company. Then you got to make sure you have a product market fit and a brand that will take you a long way. But in the meantime, I'm proud that we started here. And like at the end of the day, we're right now we're 75% business in Canada, 25 in the US. I think by end of 22, we'll be a 80% in the US, 20% Canada.
Mhm. And I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there. It's start where you know and then kind of grow from there. But one thing you touched on before, which I'm kind of interested in, is that you said you do a lot of the manufacturing yourself. How did logistics play into a role? Because I feel like shipping, not like can't plain unhealthy candy, relatively easy, can't go bad. Chocolate melts, you
Yeah.
have to get it places. There is a shelf life on it. Did you have to learn how to do distribution, or was that like a big learning curve, or was it relatively simple because, like you said, there's only a few really big in Canada specifically, like franchise chains in regards to groceries?
Yeah. Well, we're located in the refrigerator, so it even makes it even more complex. We
Oh
have a
my goodness.
90-day shelf life. So imagine that. So because we don't use preservatives or additives, we're located in the fridge, which makes everything more complex. First of all, shipping chocolate in D2C is so difficult because the melting, right? So
Mhm,
if you're shipping to California, you're shipping in the summertime right now, you got to have insulations, you got to have ice packs in there, you got to have different things moving. That costs a lot of money, right? That's going to cost a shit ton of money. We
mhm,
figured it out. It took 2.5 years to figure it out. We use all different types of services, eco
mhm,
insulations, all this stuff, reusable ice packs. From a standpoint of physical distribution, you basically sell to a distributor. So you don't sell directly to
mhm,
Loblaws or Metro or Sobeys. What happens is
mhm,
there's a middle group that basically is a
mhm,
glorified logistics company that basically picks up the product, they buy it from you at a very low
mhm,
rate, and then they sell it to the retailers because their trucks are
mhm,
going right to the retailers every day or every second day. Because a company like
mhm,
Loblaws doesn't want 1,000 trucks backing into their stores every day because you got
mhm,
35,000 products in the store. Imagine how many trucks that is in terms of brands, right?
mhm,
So what they do is they consolidate it into one or two or three, maybe four different distributors. So
mhm,
we do is we ship, they pick it up, they pick it up in refrigerated trucking. It gets to their distribution
mhm,
facility. It's put in the refrigerator. Then it leaves probably the next day or the day after, right to the store where it's now
mhm.
put in the back of the store, then brought out to the store. So it is a little complex. But our short shelf life makes us have to move really quickly and pressure on all our angles. So we have to pressure our distributor to move very quickly on selling product and not overbuying product from us.
True. That can always be so tricky, especially with anything food related or retail related, is that they have to sell their product. It's one of those things, supply and demand, but they have to pre-order. So it's unlike, like you said, it's not like a online product where, oh, I'll just take, I mean, you could do pre-orders, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to make 1,000 chocolate bars and hope they sell. It's, well, if I don't sell any of them, you can't resell them. It's not like a computer. One thing that's I always found like you touched on it, can always be tricky is there's thousands of chocolate bars out there. I mean, typically depending on where you in protein bars, anything you compare it to, every new week there's a new bar out there. How did you get started out? Was it a branding push? How'd you get the name out there initially when everyone would always think, oh, I already have a chocolate bar I like, or I already have a protein bar I like? How'd you get people to try it for the first time?
Yeah, so we did two things, three things. First was when we launched in August, I made a deal with my partners. I said, if I'm coming in as a third
Mhm,
partner, we're going to film everything. So we're going to document the entire journey of Midday Squares from the good, the bad, and the ugly, and
mhm,
literally make it as radically transparent as possible because I want our
mhm,
consumers to be able to feel what we're going through, see what we're going through, and kind of understand what it is to build a business from
mhm,
zero to wherever it goes. That alone allowed our consumers to have this human connection to us, understand who we are,
mhm,
feel who the people are, the faces behind it, and communicate with them, right?
mhm,
That was number one. Number two, we launched a sample program online. We were one of the first companies ever to launch a food sampling program online on their own website, which is basically we did 25-cent samples. So we basically all we asked for was people to put their credit card down. That meant we were able to get people that really wanted to commit to try it. And we would
mhm,
ship them a chocolate bar, even though we lost money. We'd also ship, the third thing we did is we shipped every order with a handwritten Polaroid picture of the three of us, again, to humanize, to triple down on humanization, with a handwritten message to
mhm,
the customer thanking them or writing something personal about them. Those three
mhm,
things allowed for us to get trial and buzz, the two things that work. So we started getting like a virality on social media because everyone was like, oh my God,
mhm,
I see this company online. They're transparent as hell. Then
mhm,
they send us a sample for 25 cents. They fall in love with the product. And then they see the Polaroid and they're like, holy shit, this company cares about human connection, which is what our
mhm,
consumers in today's world want more than ever. And I think one important factor is that if you don't have a good product, it won't go anywhere. You need
mhm,
good product, but you also need branding. You need both in today's world. And we
mhm.
managed to do both of those at the beginning and hopefully forever.
Mhm. And if you look on your website, if you looked on your own personal LinkedIn, the branding's consistent. I mean, how you see yourself in your own LinkedIn channels or on socials is the exact same energy that's on your website and stuff. So it's a very consistent. Like you said, it's true to yourself. This is who you are. You're buying not only into Midday Squares, you're also buying into the energy you have. And I mean, that's why I connected with you. I thought it was very unique. So you start growing, I know with any small business, you wearing multiple hats at the beginning. You're doing everything. What were some of the challenges with growing? Like, was it hard for you to give up some control? Was it hard for you to take on new roles, or kind of how did that transition go? Because I feel a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but people don't realize having 3 employees, having 100 employees, 10 employees, having 100 employees, they require different things. Personally, do you find any challenges along that journey, or were there things you thought were different from being a very small startup to now being a relatively successful chocolate company or
Yeah.
bar company?
Yeah. So for us, first off, we're right now we're 42. Uh, we're a team of 42,
Mhm.
and we should be 45 by next week.
Ooh.
Um, so we're growing. I think the hardest thing was at the beginning. I didn't want to let go of my management position. So because I'm a co-founder and I own a
Mhm.
portion of the company, I thought it was necessary to be a manager, like manage a team underneath me.
Mhm.
So I held on to that mentality for 8 months. It burned me inside.
Mhm.
And I kind of thought that was what it's supposed to be. You know, you own a
Mhm.
company, you have to be a manager, right? You have no choice. So that
Mhm.
was a weakness of mine. And I was playing to my weakness, not my strength. And when I switched that, everything started to fall into place. So I started playing more to my strengths, which is being out there, being about, and I actually wanted to be managed, actually.
Mhm.
And that was a game changer within the company. Number two is protecting your company culture. Really hard to do when you have a very family oriented company culture and you want people speaking up, honesty, transparency.
Mhm.
And we're crazy, we're wild, we film
Mhm.
everything. Like we literally we have videographers in house. Like you got to imagine
Mhm.
that we have a media team within our company
Mhm.
that films the entire thing. So protecting that culture. And then number three is scaling manufacturing. Manufacturing is so difficult when
Mhm.
you're building food and you're building your own machinery that's custom made. You got to figure out how to go from making 100 bars a day to 10,000 bars a day to now to be able to do 90,000 bars a day. There's so many things that go into that complexity. And it's not just like, oh, I'm going to buy that machine over there. It's like, no, you have to build your own line out that's custom made, right? So we had to do that. That took 2 years. But now we're in a facility where we could scale up to 90 million, 80 million in revenue per year just in this Montreal facility. Which
Wow.
we originally started in my brother-in-law, my sister's condo, making by hand.
That is wild. Like you said, like so much scalability there, and like you said, logistics, shipping, everything. Manufacturing is can always be challenging, especially with something that doesn't have a long shelf life. It's not like you can pump up a factory, make stuff for 4 years, and then be like, oh, now I'm going to sell this plush toy because it's the same thing no matter what. How so? Thing growing pretty well. You have a good brand behind you, and kind of everything's videotaping. How did really you get in? So this video thing is quite unique. I know it's becoming more and more popular now. Were there any inspirations you found you had to do this, or was it something where you always, for example, were you always in front of the camera? Where you're like, hey, I like social media. It's something I enjoy. Let me bring this into the company, or was it something you saw that could add value? Kind of was it chicken before the egg, or how did it all happen with that?
Yeah, so two things. So I actually really enjoyed being on camera. My previous journeys with the fitness, the
Mm-hmm.
clothing, I was always on camera, so I thought I knew it was necessary. But number two, Shark Tank and those types of shows were really taken off,
Yes.
and they're very superficial. They're on surface level stuff. Like they don't go
Mm-hmm.
depth enough onto the companies. So I said, if we could take if we could take the idea of Shark Tank and then take the idea of Kardashians, make love with them, but get rid of the vanity in
Mm-hmm.
Kardashians and show the journey of entrepreneurship, I think we'd have a huge win in it. And my partners agreed, and we committed. And our first hire, other than our team to make the
Mm-hmm.
bars, our first operational hire was a videographer. And people thought we were crazy, being a startup with no money. We hired a full time videographer to document, just purely document, document, document. And that idea of reality television or reality show vibes was really
Mm-hmm.
on fire. So we took advantage of it, and now it's one of the best things we can do because that's what's grown the brand. It
Mm-hmm.
allows our consumers to feel like they're buying from a friend, a neighbor, or an acquaintance rather than, oh, I'm buying that healthy chocolate bar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big difference right there.
Interesting. And funny enough, I know exactly. I mean, I'm very obviously very familiar with Shark Tank. Family's on it, but one of the challenges with that show is that it's very much made for TV. Like there's a lot of drama. It's a lot of in front of a camera. One thing people don't realize is if you're trying to raise money, you don't say, "Hi, I want 100,000 for 10%." VCs are say, "No, we tell you what your value. We're not. You don't tell us what your evaluation is. We figure that out ourselves." So I think that's always funny. I know with a lot of my schooling, people like there'll be a pitch competition. They'll say that, and then people in the VC world will be like, "That's actually not how it works. It just looks good on TV." So that's always funny that you touched on as well as that like anything reality TV, it's never the same as it is in person. You're a lot focused on growth now, obviously expanding. I always found something challenging within the consumer goods or products is that when do you make a different flavor or different bar versus focus more on just expanding what you already have, and kind of when is that? Because I know some companies, you keep experimenting, keep developing, and sure, it's good, but then that dollar amount in R&D or in focus could be spent better on getting more, disty or distribution channels. How do you find those trade-offs, and how do you know when you're ready to develop a new product?
Yeah, but I also want to add to what you're saying. So Shark Tank did a great job in encouraging entrepreneurship. It did
Mm-hmm.
an incredible job in encouraging mainstream entrepreneurship, which I think is super important because without shows like that, and even like personality, showmanship, all this stuff, we don't have this vast majority of new companies coming. They're just not
Mm-hmm.
because that idea allows you to think that you can find the capital, you could find this, you could do that. And I think it's super important. So, they were that show is an inspiration for why
Mm-hmm.
that showmanship for me was like, we got to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But what you were saying after was basically, um, shit, I forgot. What were you talking? What was the question? The second one?
Like I think it was probably related to products. Like how do you
Yeah.
know when to develop a new product versus
Yes.
expand?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, that's a very good question because in food, a lot of companies tend to go down the route of, oh, I'm going to do 10 SKUs. I'm going to spread wide instead of focusing on building what you could be known for to start, to get people
Mm-hmm.
familiar with your product. We chose to go after one SKU to start, not three. Three took over 2.5 years. Think about it. That's a long time to do three SKUs. And
Mhm.
what we did is we got people to know exactly what they're getting and build a product that's, we like to say, if it's not fuck yeah, then it's no. That's how
Mhm.
we build our products. My sister does not release a product unless it's not, I wouldn't say perfect is a word, but unless she knows it's fucking good. And
Mhm.
things take time. Good things, great things take a lot of time. We listen to our customer base. Obviously, we listen to our
Mhm.
customer base, seeing what they want, but we follow a lot of the data that's out there in terms of all the data that come from the
Mhm.
retailers, that come from consumer habits. But again, because you're creating an innovative product, you can't just release them snap of a finger. We have 3 people in our food science department
Mhm.
in house. It still takes them a long time. We don't use preservatives. Shelf life testing takes 3 months minimum. So if we hit a trial that we like and then we put it into testing and it doesn't work after 3 months, we have to restart. So it takes a long time. So we try to release 1 to maybe 2 flavors, one every year and a half. And eventually we're going to get out of the bar space. So we'll do about 5 or 6 and then we're out. We're going into other chocolate snacks, better for you
Mhm.
chocolate snacks.
That's wild how long it takes. I think I'm so used to talking around like the tech world where it's like, oh, every week you just develop a new product and then, oh, test, doesn't work, switch it out. But like you were saying, it takes months to test. You have to trial and error. You can't just make a bar and sell it the next day. There's shelf life, there's taste, how things get affected with time as well. It's very refreshing or new thing to hear because I'm so used to people saying like, well, you started this business and we just kept developing new things. And like you said, once you get to a certain size, everything connects to your brand. Then you can't just, if you release a bar and it doesn't either fit the healthy aspects or doesn't taste as good as the other ones, it affects everything. It's not just
Yep.
that one bar. It's the whole brand. Your whole identity is affected with that. Um, funny enough, especially with Shark Tank and everything like that, I always found it interesting that it made entrepreneurship obviously very popular, very vocal. I've been on set many times when it's filmed, and it's relatively very like compared to the TV, what you see on TV and what in person, very similar. It's not that dramatic as people make it seem. The differences, but one thing people I feel don't get asked is, was there any advice you got that you learned after the fact wasn't good advice? Because a lot of times you listen to a lot of people, and someone has some success, you take everything with not the opposite of grain of salt, with a handful of sand. Was there any advice you got that you realized after the fact wasn't that good or was misguided, I guess you could say?
Yeah. I'm very bullish on this conversation, this topic right now, because for me, but you got to block out the noise. Entrepreneurship, if you listen to everyone, you're getting nowhere. If you got to listen to what your gut's telling you. Your gut
Mm-hmm.
is right 9 on 10 times. If your gut's telling you to go with this, go with it. For us, if you listen to everyone, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's where I had to learn at the beginning. I was listening to people. I was an entrepreneur in this, an entrepreneur in that. It's okay to listen to them, but really selectively choose what you want from it and don't just take it all in and say it's going to work with me. What works with this book, with this company, Vans, isn't necessarily going to work with MidDay Squares, right? I do read the books on these people as memoirs to understand their brain, but I don't take everything from them. I take what I know what apply to MidDay Squares. Advice from other entrepreneurs that I've sat down with, like you have coffee chats, you were saying, I have coffee
Mm-hmm.
chats as well, but it's more just for inspiration and creativity. It's more to just get to know and hang with people, like good people like you, who I get to know and
Mm-hmm.
be friends with. We could talk business, we could do the fun stuff. But I think people take too much advice, and when they take too much advice, they end up veering in the wrong path because it's not true to who you are. For me, my biggest saying in life is be unapologetically yourself and be proud of it. Because if you're not, you ain't gonna get anywhere. Individualism needs to shine. My partners and I are very different characters. The three of us are very different, but
Mm-hmm.
core value wise, we agree on the same thing, and on the big picture, we agree on the same thing. But I will never step on what they do, and they will never step on what I do. My sister is in manufacturing and creative direction. My brother-in-law is in raising money and operations. I don't ask a single question about either of those topics ever because I trust them. I don't need to listen to them about this. They don't talk to me about customer experience. They don't talk to me about building relationships because when it comes to all the advice that comes in, if
Mm-hmm.
you listen to it, your eyes go everywhere. They can't stay focused on a single like lane. You just need a
Mm-hmm.
lane and you got to at least see it through. I have friends who started businesses, Brennan, that literally listened to everyone and they literally ran out of capital in months, really
Mm-hmm.
quickly, snap of a finger, because they're like, oh my God, well, I got this wrong. Just because you're raising money from this world doesn't mean it's the same thing in this world. It could be a completely different thing. We've stayed true to our guns, and I think that's what's made us special or is allowing us to, grow at a significant rate and have somewhat of success.
Mhm.
And I think that's just the best advice I could give to someone is they don't have to listen to me. But what I do think is your gut is your strongest, is your strongest opinion and guidance.
Mhm. And I think that's one thing. I think the problem with anyone is that everything is different. Like you said, it's like giving advice to a human is the same as giving advice to a business. Everyone is different, so you have to adjust it to how you operate or how your business works. But I think also one thing that's difficult is you meet someone who's successful from an industry 30, 40 years ago. There was no social media back then. So obviously their advice could be good and helpful. But like you're saying is everything is different. It's hard, and it is a hard line and to really draw a sand is like someone's telling me to do this. Should I not? Where do I draw a line can always be difficult. But one thing also, which you touched on as well, is that as long as, I mean, follow your gut is, but at the same time is if you enjoy what you're doing and you follow it through, then you actually can have learnings. It's hard to learn anything in a week, like
Yep.
whether it be marketing, a marketing campaign. I know so many companies, they do a marketing campaign. They're like, oh, we use Instagram for a week. Doesn't work. We got no engagement. Well, did you try different ad? What did you do? Like, oh no, we threw $100 at it and we got no sales. It's like, well, you have to test things out. And there's so many aspects to that, which is
Well,
very insightful.
what's crazy is I find our generation, Brent. I think you and I are
Mhm.
similar ages.
Yeah.
I don't know your age exactly, but I think our generation doesn't like to see things through.
Mhm.
And not everyone.
Mhm.
There's some people that really do, but they go and they try for a little bit. They don't get to see the exact thing. They don't have the old
Mhm.
school grit that people with, that you hang out with,
Mhm.
that your family
Mhm.
have that grit. They have that old school grit that they knew how to long. They were able to stay in the pocket for very
Mhm.
long and take the beating that they took to get to where they are today. And I think that is where I learned. That's the advice I take from all the books I read or from the people I see is that
Mhm.
they have a commonality. The one common thing is grit. They're able to deal with pain for a very long time, and then it eventually leads to souffle. So I say it's like eating dog poo all day
Mhm.
for years, and then you eat souffle one
Mhm.
day. And it's like our generation, and I have no
Mhm.
nothing against our generation. I love our
Mhm.
generation. It's just they're missing that old school grit. I don't know where it's gone,
Mhm.
but that type of thing that's in athletes,
Mhm.
that's in great entrepreneurs that you know a lot of,
Mhm.
is grit. And I just think that that's the one advice I've taken from other
Mhm.
sources and reading books is that's the common thing I've kept. And it's weird to see people that don't want to actually let things fail, like actually go to the
Mhm.
ground or let things really succeed, right? They're so quick to say, okay, on to the next, or no, no, I can't do this. I'm
Mhm.
off with it. At our team, Brandon, we always tell our teammates,
Mhm.
our coworkers, if you have a problem, don't just come to your direct report with the problem. At least do some sort of research. You have Google, you have all these different things
Mhm.
available to actually think it through before you come. Because a lot of the time people come, they're like, oh, this happened. It's like, did you take 5 minutes to ask yourself why? And they're
Mhm.
like, no. And then you're like, okay, well, now you're taking someone else's energy up, right? So I wish there was more of that, is like, get to the answer quicker.
Mhm.
Or if you can't get to it, then go to your direct
Mhm.
report. But I think there's a lot of like in our generation, just that movement of not holding it out too long.
Mhm. And I think like what you said is so great advice is don't come with problems, come with solutions. Even if they're the wrong solution, at least say
Mhm.
like, hey, this is my train of thought. Because most of the times, I mean, you always learn this in like elementary school when they're like, give me the answer. And you're like, if I give you the answer, you won't learn how to solve it. And you hate it as a child, but so true is if you go to someone and say, this is my train of thinking, they can say, hey, this idea, this is where you went wrong, or this is the wrong framing. It at least allows you to learn. Where if you get the answer, you don't get any learning from it. You just realize, oh, okay, I'll just do this next time. One thing though on the other side is how do you know when it is time to step away? I know with a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff, an idea is like a baby to you. You don't want to give up your child because it's so important. You invested so much emotion, but a lot of times that can blind you. How are you able to, for some ideas that may be unsuccessful, how are you able to step away and be like, look, this was not a bad idea, but maybe a bad process we should step away from because X, Y, and Z? How do you know when it's ready to step away versus stepping away too early because it's hard? How do you draw that line?
I think you learn with your. I swear, I think it's your gut. I used to be horrible at that judgment. Okay, when I
Mhm,
when I was starting my journey, my earlier entrepreneurship journeys, I was making tremendous mistakes. I was like giving up too quickly, or I was like, not knowing when to stop holding it on too long.
mhm,
I think with just trial and error, you learn where it is your threshold and where that sand is marked, and you know
mhm,
exactly when, and you make a decision and you follow through with it. You don't go back on your decision. So if
mhm,
I'm going to close a company, I'm closing the company and I'm
mhm,
going to the next thing. My brain is now being used somewhere else. It's
mhm,
not holding back that extra little bit of resentment or animosity. And I
mhm,
think that applies to your day to
mhm,
day decision making. It's like know when to stop on something and know when to keep going. It's like for me in Canadian grocery,
mhm,
at the stores we're currently selling at, we have the wrong placement. They're putting us in the dairy section where the eggs and milk are. We're a vegan
mhm,
impulse convenient product, not a
mhm,
shopping list item in the egg section. Think about that.
mhm,
So we're getting killed. And I know it's not our potential because then when you look at our product at Whole Foods or you look at our product at some of these natural great stores, we're
mhm,
killing it like on fire because we're in the right location. We're in a great end cap fridge, grab and go area, blah blah
oh,
blah. So I have not given up, even though the corporate world has told me at their grocery stores, we cannot move it. It doesn't make sense. We don't know where to put it. This is in Canada, not the US.
mhm,
Um, they keep hounding me down on it. I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. I'm
mhm,
going every angle because I know that the benefit of changing the product will not only benefit my consumers because they'll be able to find the product and not have to
mhm,
search for an hour in the store because it's so hard to find, but also it will jump our sales 4 times. So I have not given up on this. And people have told me many times, just give up. Eventually it will change in years to come. And this is advice from many successful food entrepreneurs.
mhm,
And I just can't accept that, Brandon. I just can't.
mhm,
And I'm going, going, going. And I've gotten creative and I've gotten somewhere over the last 6 months. And we're getting there. We've gotten stores to allow us to test. We've shown solutions. There's a lot of potential, but that I know when is the time to stop because my
mhm,
gut will tell me it's not yet time to stop. And I think that's where it comes down to in terms of sand cutting and where
mhm,
you have to know when that is. It's your own gut that's going to tell you.
mhm. And that's great advice. One thing you did touch on is, and you have such good focus on your brand, of your culture. You spoke so much to us, but like you were saying, is when you sell your product, it goes through a distribution site and then to the grocery stores. How do you keep? Is it possible to keep control all the way to the end? And how do you ensure that, like you said, your product is in the right location, has the right, like everything in regards to that? I feel a lot of times it can be difficult because you're literally giving up a lot of control, or at least it seems like that. How do you have any sense of control over what the end customer sees when they go to a grocery store to see the product?
It's so difficult. What you just brought up is incredible. You noticing that impresses me a lot because it's like basically you're right. It leaves our facility. It goes to a third party, which is our distributor, which then takes it to a retailer, which then now they're placing it according to the planogram, or if they don't have a planogram,
Mhm,
wherever they want in the store. Now, being a bar that's refrigerated, we're an innovation. We're a pioneer in Canada.
mhm,
There's no one doing it really.
mhm,
So sometimes the retailer then puts it on the shelf. They put it where the protein bars are or the chocolate bars are. And then
mhm,
our consumers find it. And because we've built an army and a brand and a tribe, they'll
mhm,
message us and be like, hey guys, we told the manager to move it back to the thing. But the problem with that is how long has it been on the shelf for? So our visibility is almost blind, right? And what we've done is we've hired third party merchandisers to go into the stores once a week to deal with the managers, to check in, to see if the product's right and try to get secondary placement. But that's very expensive. It's thousands of dollars a month. And because you're dealing with monopoly in terms of grocery, it's these
mhm.
big chains, things don't just move. You can't just move your product and put it somewhere else because it'll get put back to where it was.
Yeah.
You need to get it from the head office. So it's a huge process, right? Now, in the US, there's so many other services that could help you fix the problems. But in the US, there's also a refrigerated snacking set. So I don't worry about it. It's put in there and they know what it is. In Canada, I've been fighting this fight for 2.5 years where it's so difficult. And it's just until we're the size of Coca Cola or Lay's or
Mhm,
any of that size, then we'll hire our own internal teams. So what I mean by that is hundreds of people across Canada that are internally
mhm,
MidDay Squares employees that will literally go into the stores weekly to make sure the product is properly placed,
mhm.
it's fully stocked, and the shelf lives are good, so it doesn't have an expired bar on the shelf. That's the
Oh,
dream.
smart.
Red Bull does it. Red Bull does a great job at
Mhm,
it, but we're not there yet. Hopefully, in the
mhm,
next 2 years.
mhm. It's so true. I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially when you're using any business, when you use a distributor, is once you let go of your product, it is very hard to then control the customer experience on the customer side. I think it's hard to understand if you haven't done it or try to sell something before, because you think, oh, well, like the grocery store knows where to put it. It'll make a lot of sense. But like for them, you said there's thousands of SKUs, thousands of people worrying about the same issue. But it's anything you can do on your end to make that experience better. And you, like you said, developing an army or being so good with your brand where people know, they're going to look you up. They're like, oh, I understand the company. I like your culture. If something's wrong, I will reach out to you. So you almost have for free, or like at least have a lot of people who are helping you have that store presence, or at least understanding, to at least send you a message being like, hey, I got your bar. This is what's happening. And then I see you reply to many, many things. You're very active on the socials for that reason, is that people feel if there is if it's a complaint or a concern, they're being heard. And they're like, okay, maybe I had a bad bar because the grocery store messed up, but
Yep.
they understand. I'll give it another try. And for a lot, I think for anything, you want that culture just so people believe in you, even if there's something out of your control that goes wrong.
Dude, you need tribalism in today's world. You need your brand in food. I'm only speaking for CPG food,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Food and beverage. If you don't have it looking like more like a Lululemon or a Nike, you're in
Mm-hmm.
trouble. They have communities. They've built strong communities of people that are diehard, and they breathe the brand. They believe what you stand for. For us, like the Apples of the world, the Starbucks of the
Mm-hmm.
world, for us, we're building like that, not like a General Mills or a Kellogg's or a
Mm-hmm.
Mars or any of those guys. They've done a great job, don't worry, in building in terms of mass, but their multiple on the public markets is nowhere near what the multiple of a Lululemon is. Lululemon has built a
Mm-hmm.
community. Community is the hardest thing to build because they'll do anything for you. Our community got us into Whole Foods. Our community is working on getting us all these partnerships because they believe what we're doing. For us, our thing is Nike gives you permission to be an athlete, gives anyone permission to be an athlete. Apple gives people permission to be creative. MidDay Squares
Mm-hmm.
gives you permission to show that you can win unapologetically by being yourself. And that's what we're doing. We swear on
Mm-hmm.
public television. We do crazy stuff. I know public television, you can't swear and stuff. It's not good for the.
Mm-hmm.
We do it because it's who we are. We don't swear because I think it's hot. We do it because it's passion coming out, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
when you're authentic and you show your authenticity, it relates to the consumer so much that they want to be there with you and win this battle or win this journey with
Mm-hmm.
you and be on that roller coaster. And I think a lot of brands are scared to show that side. They're scared to show the truth, or they're scared to show the real part of the business, not just the front picture, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like if we don't continue to get people to feel like they're buying from Jake, Nick, and Leslie or the MidDay Squares
Mm-hmm.
crew when they go see the bar on the shelf under the refrigerator, then
Mm-hmm.
then we failed. If they don't feel that, then we failed because that's what's going to set us apart. Forget about good product. That's what's going to set us apart in terms of mass growth of getting that from that 10 million in revenue to 30 to 100, 100 to
Mm-hmm.
500, and being a billion
Mm-hmm.
dollar business. And I told people from day one that we're going to be a billion-dollar business, and people laughed at my face. They literally laughed. They're like, "Oh, it's another entrepreneurship journey for you. It's another one of those
Mm-hmm.
things that you're going to fail and do this." And it hurt, right? It hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw a clear path using building community and building good products to getting to that path. And we're on that path. We're growing. We promised to our investors everything we promised in our board meetings, we keep hitting every year and we do more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something where it comes true to, the core values and who you guys are fundamentally as a business and using that to excel all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it makes so much sense. It's one of those things where you see now, like podcasting YouTube stars are bigger than those TV shows or TV stars, because like you learn about on YouTube or anywhere else, you learn about their lives. You buy into them as a person, not the character they're typically playing on TV. And it's wild, especially within our generation, the shift between what a celebrity is. Like, I guarantee more people would find it. I'm not sure who's hot on Instagram right now, but a lot of these celebrities, to kids, you might have 100,000 followers. To them, they could be the most famous person in the world because they saw their dog, they saw their kids, they saw what they went on vacation for, they see what they're eating. There's that built-in connection, much deeper than what was possible in the past. And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you're not just buying the bar, you're buying into the family or into the whole lifestyle that you've come to create. So thank you so much for connecting. This was super dynamic and interesting around really all your journey, your passion, really how you got started in the industry. If people want to follow along, what's the best place to get connected, best place to get the bars, and all
Yeah.
your socials?
So obviously, if you want to get on our website, www.middaysquares.com, we also have a podcast, which is really cool. I think Brendan, you should check it out. It's called Midday Squares Uncensored. It's basically a what do you call it? A chat room.
Mm-hmm.
The three of us talk. We sit down, and my two partners, and we just go about everything. Like we go really deep into crazy shit, like raising money. We go into like the idea of blocking the noise out, all that stuff. That's really great. Check us out on Instagram. We post everything of our lives on there. So on our IGTVs, on the IG stories, every single day that we're posting the behind the scenes of the business and what happens and what's going on. So it's at Midday Squares, and then obviously LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. TikTok we're playing with now. We're trying to learn it, but it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
And then in stores, make sure to look us in the refrigerator, not where the bars are typically. We're in the refrigerated section, usually either in the organic or the dairy section, even though we're a plant-based product. So that's where you can find us.
Great connecting.